Some new details now emerging about that close friend of Hillary Clinton that Doug just mentioned, who sent memos to the then Secretary of State about events unfolding in Libya, including the Benghazi terror attack. Now, Congressman Trey Gowdy, who leads the investigation into that attack, wants to subpoena this friend, Sidney Blumenthal. It all comes amid word that Blumenthal had business interests inside Libya at the time he was giving advice. The New York Times writes that, quote, Mr. Blumenthal's involvement was more wide-ranging and more complicated than previously known, embodying the blurry lines between business, politics, and philanthropy that have enriched and vexed the Clintons and their inner circle for years. Joining us now is A.B. Stoddard, associate editor and columnist for The Hill. Charlie Hurt, also with us, a columnist for The Washington Times. Charlie, for those who aren't familiar with the Clinton administration, and we're going back a few years now on that one, who is Sidney Blumenthal?
Well, Sidney Blumenthal has been with the Clintons since the very, very beginning, and he's always been the sort of guy on the outskirts that is always sort of up to something, and it's never exactly totally clear what it is. But he's always, or I think he's always working to the Clintons' benefit. But who knows? I mean, this whole Southern Gothic soap opera is so complicated. It's so hard to follow that it's really sort of it's hard to figure out, who's doing what, when, and to whom. But the fact that here we are, 20 years into the Clinton saga, and it's still Sidney Blumenthal in Libya. He's working for the Libyans, he's working for the Clintons, and the only people that he's not working for is the State Department, apparently, or at least not legitimately or above board. It's just, I marvel at the ability of the Clintons to their staying power. Yeah. It's truly astonishing.
A.B., according to this New York Times article, Sidney Blumenthal, who is not particularly an expert on Libya that I am aware, is sending Hillary Clinton advice on how to deal with the Libyan situation, advice which some of her own advisors discounted.
Right. Sidney Blumenthal got together with a couple of guys who thought that with the transition from Gaddafi to a new government in Libya, there were opportunities for them. And so they got in there bumbling around, really not knowing much of anything about Libya. Sidney Blumenthal sent her regular, lengthy, 3-page, 25 of them in a year's time, emails, often touting the connections he was trying to make in Libya, touting people as more important players he would know, bit players in the new government, saying that they really had the most influence. When she would pass them on, and she passed them on regularly, only one time did she tell him this strains credulity, she would pass them on to her respectable employees who were experts, and they would pass them on to people like Ambassador Chris Stevens, not saying who it was from, just anonymously cutting and pasting and saying, the secretary thinks we should all take a look at this. But they were doing it like they were indulging a piteous relative of hers. And it was this sort of, we have to do this because the secretary wants us to. It's part of the ongoing narrative where the Clinton administration keeps their loyal friends and allies close. They give them opportunity. Huma Abedin, her right-hand woman throughout these last years, who started as her body woman, she worked at State Department while also earning money from the private sector at the same time. Sidney Blumenthal, of course, working for the foundation and doing business in Libya and trying to be a real bona fide advisor to her as Secretary of State. It's laughable, but they think this is fine, and they think the public doesn't care. If they didn't, they wouldn't do it.
We'll get back to that part of it in a moment, whether the public cares or not. But Charlie, here's a guy, Sidney Blumenthal, that, as you point out, the Obama administration basically locked out of the White House, but he's still providing advice to Hillary Clinton's State Department.
And I think that actually is something, John, that can actually come back and genuinely hurt Hillary Clinton, because, of course, President Obama is president, and he matters a lot in her next quest in the 2016 election. There's a lot he can do. Little things like this, I think, really tick him off. And when he came in 8 years ago, and I was always surprised that he actually made the overture to bring in Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State in the first place, because his whole entire campaign was about not being the Clintons. It was about putting an end to all of that. And so little things like this, having very specifically cut Sidney Blumenthal out of the State Department, and then only to find out later in a very, very, very embarrassing turn of events with all of these emails and the business connections and stuff like that, to find out one more example where the Clintons kind of thumbed their nose at President Obama. At some point, his ire is going to be piqued to the point that he's going to comment on it at the very least, if not go beyond that and actually wade into it in some way.
AB, we just have a few seconds left. Barack Obama might be unhappy, but will voters?
The voters, the Clintons are counting on the voters, the Obama coalition coming out for her, which I do not think will happen in the numbers she's expecting. She thinks she has half the country because it's pretty evenly split. So you look at the undecideds. Are they disgusted enough with the system that we have? Do they think she's just another politician? That's the question. And she's assuming now by not talking and just steamrolling through this, what I thought Peggy Noonan brilliantly described as a silent movie of a campaign, that this is not going to come back to haunt her.
All right, A.B. Stoddard and Charlie Hurt. Interesting. Sidney Blumenthal is back.
Indeed.
Thank you both.